I've had plenty of opportunities to do a sideline for NBA, for men, anything. I don't want that. I don't want that.
Ari Chambers is not only a sports journalist, she's also a model, social media producer, and that's not even it. She has so much going on. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm good. There's so much going on in the world. Where do we start?
Mm-hmm. Right. You know, as a Black woman, we're trained to be like, I'm great. I'm doing great. But are we doing great?
Right. That's the question. I mean, where's your head at right now?
Basic levels of survival. I've been trying to find any type of balance that I can, just to stay above water and find my peace in the midst of all of this turmoil. Not only do we have a global pandemic, but we have a race war going on that is really necessary. And I'm kind of glad that it's happening because reform is needed right now. But it can take a toll. You know, Black people, we have secondhand trauma. So just trying to navigate through that. I hope you're staying above water and all this.
Yeah, it's definitely been hard, but I think, like you said, it's been so necessary. And It took a global pandemic, everyone being stuck in the house and all this it's just kind of amazing to me that people are saying the veil has been lifted, as if people really didn't know that racism was a thing.
But you know what's funny?
Think it's crazy.
The ones, because I remember doing the same thing in 2016, right? The ones who didn't, I don't want to say buy into it because that sounds so trivial, but the ones who weren't understanding of the movement of Black Lives Matter back in 2016 have finally, something clicked. I see a lot more solidarity and allyship this go round. So hopefully this will be the thing that sets it off into a new society that can be, equitable and serving everybody. I know it's going to take a lot to make that happen, but we're making steps in the right direction, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Even seeing NASCAR, Bubba.
NASCAR!
I'm a fan.
NASCAR.
I'm a fan. Who would have thought that one day? NASCAR.
Ever.
Let's start talking about you. So when you were a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a lawyer, and I still kind of do, right? I saw it in myself. I've always been audacious. I've always been the type to collect evidence again. I was a little conspirator. So when I was little, I was like, yeah, I'm going to be a defense attorney. Now it's probably not going to be that. It's probably going to be public policy.
But you ended up going into broadcast and all of these things. But before that, you were in fashion.
I stumbled upon fashion. When I was 18, I put on my Facebook status that I wanted a photographer for Christmas. And my friend was talk to my boyfriend, Kevin. He's a booker. I got signed in North Carolina, and then they sent me to New York, and I got signed in New York. And it was literally all because I wanted to make a Christmas card for my mom. That's it.
Wow.
But I feel like when you're called to do something, you're going to end up exactly where you need to be.
Soon after accepting a teaching fellowship, Ari realized the teacher life was not for her.
Y'all not about to keep climbing me. And no, I don't like that. So I actually dropped out of school and moved to New York and modeled. And then I dropped back in because my mom was like, do you know where you come from? Get it together. So I ended up going to NC State and I cheered there. And that's actually what brought me back. Not what brought me back to New York, because after I graduated from there, I went back to New York, made a pit stop at Oxford. But I went back to New York, and then I was still modeling, but then I started doing entertainment at Madison Square Garden with Knicks, Rangers, and Liberty.
Like you said, when something is for you, it's for you, and you're going to end up exactly where.
It falls right there in line.
So you're at Madison Square Garden, and then how did you make that transition into sports?
So when I was cheering in the WNBA season, I would notice that there was no media. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. These are Olympians. These are the top 144 athletes in the world. Why is nobody covering them? And my DJ friend, Tiffany, she was like, why don't you talk to them? So I did. I went to their away team hotel room at the Renaissance. It was right by MSG. And I would set my phone up and I would just record interviews and post them online. And that's when I started gaining traction and following sports related as opposed to modeling. I already had a strong following because of modeling, but adding the sports, it's a completely different audience. So it was just dope to see my worlds collide. And how the players took to me, I felt like that was just very natural. I saw the humanity in them and was telling their stories in a way that wasn't being told at the time. Because, I mean, honestly, if you want to keep it a buck, back then, there were only like 5 of us covering the league in general, like truly covering it. So I just knew I was onto something. And then I realized how underserved they were, and how, like, even the people I didn't know, their stories deserved to be told too. So I kept it up, and then I started writing for High Post Hoops to get my credibility up. And then Bleacher Report actually found me online and offered me a job.
That's the dream story right there. So
it was hard work.
Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. So when Bleacher Report discovered you, what were you thinking?
My friend Meredith Minkow, she works in the San Francisco office. I think she led them to me. But they wanted to create a women's platform. So they wanted to get somebody who was truly in the midst of women's sports and was speaking on behalf of it already. And so that's how they found me. That's how we aligned. And they said, we're not going to tell you what to do with this. Here's this platform. Do what you want. We trust your voice. And they let me make it mine. And because of Bleacher, I've been able to cover other sports and really realize that not only is the WNBA underserved, but there's a plethora of women's sports that need their stories told.
Why do you think that so often women's sports stories aren't told?
Misogyny and lack of interest in general women's sports. I think that people need to realize that women occupy these spaces and adjust accordingly. We shouldn't be talking about this in 2020, like why people are uncomfortable with women playing sports and not just being in the house. But women's sports are a lot newer than the men's sports, except for everybody's always strangely appreciated gymnastics. So that automatically does numbers, right? But just being able to stomach the WNBA, which is predominantly Black and predominantly queer, and be able to stomach that and then know that they're excellent at what they do, that's a lot for people. The women's soccer team gets a lot more love than a lot of other leagues, but they still have a long way to go. They're on paper better than the men's team. It's definitely not up for argument, and they're still struggling. So their side too. But yeah, I just think that people need to realize that women are present, women of color are present, the LGBT community is present, and there's no type of ignoring or just trying to deny people of their spaces that they're supposed to be in will ever be able to be sustainable. It just isn't.
I think in today's day and age, we talk a lot about being an ally to people who are different than you. So what is the best way people can be an ally in these situations?
If you do want to be an ally for women's sports, buy the tickets, figure out a way to go to the games, buy merch, use your dollar, because that really goes a long way. Or even raise awareness online, like social media, talk about it. I know talking about things generates income, so it's just all about a money thing.
What do you think is next for you? What do you have up your sleeve?
It's literally women's sports is where I want to be, and it's very intentional and very that is what it is. I've had plenty of opportunities to do a sideline for NBA, for men, anything. I don't want that. I had to deal with all them games of the Knicks when I was cheering. I don't need that no more.
And what do you want your legacy to be? When you're done with your career, it's so far down the line, but I love to ask this question because, what do you think is most important, that when people hear you and they look at what you've done, what do you want them to take away?
I want them to know that I did everything authentically me, and I want them to be inspired to do everything authentically them. I want them to look at me and say, this is somebody who, did what she wanted, how she wanted, and brought people along with her. I want them to be able to look to their left and their right, and they see other people of color, other women, other Black women right next to them.
Thank you for being you. Thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate it. This was awesome.
Keep grinding. You just graduated, right?
Yeah.
You just graduated. You've already had an internship at, the number one sports company.
Yes.
The future is yours. And I would say don't even wait for anything. Just keep going and keep posting your personal content, and somebody's going to find it.